All right, great. So thanks to everyone who's joined today. The way this came about, for anyone who doesn't know us, by the way, we're Immerse UK. I'm Asha, and I lead this network on behalf of Innovate UK KTN. And we're the UK government's innovation network for immersive technology and metaverse technology professionals. And we met Marcus and Samantha at a conference, the Augmented World Expo in Portugal recently, and found out about this amazing initiative, the Metaverse for SDGs, and found out there wasn't a huge, number of UK companies that were applying. So we wanted to remedy this situation and kind of get the word out to the UK immersive community about this amazing opportunity. So I'm going to pass over to Marcus to let him kind of give you a briefing on how it all works. If you have any questions, just pop them in the Q&A, and we'll get to them as we go along. And I'll just stop my video so that Marcus can take over the presentation.
Thanks, Asha. Hi, everybody. Samantha and I are with Exponential Destiny. This is an educational nonprofit based in the United States. We created this nonprofit a couple years ago, specifically with co-founders like Samantha, who are from low-income communities. Samantha specifically is from South Central Los Angeles. And our objective is to work in communities that have limited resources and low budgets, especially in the schools. And we work to help expose individuals to essentially how to design and be creators of this next generation of the internet, the metaverse. And so we give them the proper skills to do that. And then once we train them and upskill them through a mentoring process, we actually strive to employ them on projects where we go into the schools that they graduated from, the high schools that they graduated from in these lower income communities. And we have a whole methodology and approach to help the schools then create new educational pedagogies using virtual reality in the metaverse, what we like to call immersive and experiential learning through edutainment-based methods of education. I'll repeat that because it's a long one. Immersive and experiential learning through edutainment methods of education. And so we've done 5 pilots with schools whereby we go in for 4 or 5 months. Again, when I say we, it's individuals like Sam and her peers. So 20 to 22-year-olds from a low-income community go into a low-income community. And then we have a whole methodology to work with the school so that the teachers and students become self-sufficient in actually using VR as a highly educational, effective method of learning. And as many of you are aware, because I know I'm preaching to the choir on this in terms of this community, the data shows that virtual reality as a method of retaining information and learning is highly effective, and the efficacy data shows that it can be exponentially more effective, like 200–300% more effective than traditional methods like classroom and others. So what we advocate is not to replace a classroom. We just go in and say to teachers and students, here's another tool. It's highly effective. You can gamify these environments. You can create entertaining environments to teach. Basically, you have new tools and new superpowers to teach. So let's experiment with that. And if any of you are interested in the work that we do, or have us talk to some schools that you're proud of or that you want to sponsor, please reach out to us and let us know, because that's what we do in our day job. Now, in that same spirit of looking at educating individuals to build awareness around this new skill set to become metaverse creators and designers, in that spirit is why we launched this global competition that's supported by the ITU UN agency. Specifically, Samantha, myself, and our colleagues who are on the leadership team of Exponential Destiny, about 5 or 6 of us, again, I was the old guy in the room, the others were all 20 to 23-year-olds. We presented at the United Nations ITU Digital Transformation Summit back in February of this last year. They asked us to do the opening keynote on the metaverse for the Sustainable Development Goals. And we discussed with the ITU, why don't we take advantage of this opportunity? Because a lot of people don't know what the metaverse is, and a lot of the commercial hype around NFTs and tokens and crypto and metaverse space is being sold out for ridiculous sums of money. We said that commercial hype is actually distracting from some real potential of virtual reality in the metaverse to be used for some really effective reasons like education, like I just shared. So why don't we use this opportunity to launch a global competition, really with the goal of just incentivizing people from all over the world to be trained and upskilled into understanding what the metaverse is and being able to design and create in the metaverse. And then we'll gamify it and have fun with it with this competition, like you do with any prize model, where we look at crowdsourcing the world to create experiences in virtual reality that bring, and this is important, education, awareness, and empathy to the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 goals. So we're trying to mirror the education effectiveness of VR with something very important, the 17 goals of the United Nations, the Sustainable Development Goals. And that's this competition. So there's no commercial intent behind this competition. There's no, I don't personally get compensated for the work that we're doing at Exponential Destiny for this competition, just full disclosure. Our goal was to raise enough money, which we did, around $200,000, and we're still raising money for prize money as a nice prize purse to give out to the winners of the 17 SDG through this competition, and then give people an ample amount of time. So not run a competition that you have to do this in 3 months, because then we realize most of you are students or you have day jobs, et cetera. So we spread this out essentially over almost a year. Essentially announcing it in February in Geneva, but then launching it in Kigali, Rwanda in June at a UN summit. But you'll have until the end of March of 2023 to actually finish your final creations. So we extended it over that longer period of time, just so that we knew that as you team up with your friends and colleagues to participate on this, it's something that you could do on nights and weekends and be very highly effective and have a lot of fun with it and be part of the competition. So with that said, what I'd like to do is, let me pause real quickly and see if anyone wants to add a question in the Q&A before Sam and I proceed, because we're going to take you through a deck that we sent out in the video. Maybe Sam, you can send out in the chat the link to the video for those that, to the YouTube video. So people have it as a record. All of you probably have seen that or at least received it, but we'll go through a few of the slides. We'll add some additional color commentary. I don't want to regurgitate the whole thing we put out in the video, but we'll summarize and point out a few key things. But before I do that, just because this was meant to get the community together with Asha and just let people ask questions, those that are interested in potentially competing. So is there any questions before we start that anyone has that we can do right now? Let's say, is the competition designed primarily for students or XR professionals? So that's a great question. We don't have a limitation on who can enter the competition. The spirit of it for us was to get people who haven't had a lot of exposure, to get them into the field so they start to realize this is a valuable skill, that it could even be relevant for employment, right? With that said, though, the competition is open to everybody. So I will highlight this, however, there is a 14 to 18-year-old registration, and there's a 19-year-old and above registration. So we did try to separate 19-year-olds and above, college students or professionals, from competing with high school students or people that don't have a lot of skills. So when you register, you'll notice that if you have anyone on your team that's above 19, that's 19-year-olds and above, you're going to be in the 19-year-old and above category. But we have people from all experience levels competing. And so you can be an XR professional, or you can be a student, or you can be neither. You can be someone that's just interested in it, wanted to learn how to do this, and formed a team and competed. Other question, did you mean that the projects are due spring 2024? You said spring 2023. Yeah, the timeline for this is we announced the competition, like I mentioned, in Geneva of February 2022. And we are going to be finished, tentatively, the date that we're going to be finished is March 31st of 2023. So that's about 4 months, 4 to 4 months from now, a little more than 4 months from now is when the submissions will be finished and we'll do some judging and evaluation. And then we're going to have a summit in collaboration with the United Nations, the ITU, either in Geneva or New York City at the UN. Tentatively, that's what it's planned. And that summit will be in Q3. And that's when we'll give out the awards, but we'll also have a broader message and a broader summit around the metaverse for SDG. It'll include the award ceremony for this competition, of course, and we'll have demonstrations of the winning solutions or creations, but it will be a little bit broader topic on just how virtual reality, the metaverse, and related capabilities and innovations are being used for the SDGs. It'll be a multi-day summit. So thanks for those opening questions. Samantha posted the video for some of the slides that we're actually about to discuss. But let me just take you through a little bit of this just to answer any other clarifying questions. The website that should be important to you is www.sdgmetaverseprize.org. That's the site where you will find the options to register yourself as an individual. And now this is important. You have 2 levels of registration. Right off the bat, you should register as an individual. You'll see that under option 4 when you go to the website. It's straightforward. However, once you identify your team members and you want to officially get in the competition, because we're taking teams into the competition, not individuals, then you'll see there's a team registration. But you only want to do the team registration once you've picked out who your team members are, you settled on your sustainable development goal you're going to select, then you can register yourself as a team. But at this point, because it's already December, you should try to do both rather quickly. Technically, we were ending the registration at the end of December. So if you're interested in participating, again, it's not too complicated. Just identify 2 to 6 people, 1 other person other than yourself, up to 6 people, no more than 6 people, and register yourself as a team once you select your SDG. Now, let me share a little bit more. This is where we mentioned, this was the ITU Digital Transformation Summit at the UN in Geneva. There you actually see Samantha, my colleague, presenting on stage there. We announced the global competition. We did that in the context of a broader discussion about the metaverse for good. Samantha, why don't you post the UN opening keynote video, this one here also in the chat, and just label it that it's the UN opening keynote. Many of you in the community, I think, will appreciate this 20-minute presentation we did at the United Nations. We actually had teachers presenting. We had Samantha and her peers. We had young people from low-income communities talk about how this has prepared them for a new job economy. And several of them talk about how they were able to upskill themselves into relevant new jobs in the metaverse and VR. And we give some very specific examples of that. So it's very pragmatic. And you'll see all that in the opening keynote. At the end is when you'll see us have fun with announcing the competition. Also, keep in mind when you watch this UN video, after the first few minutes, we're playing a joke on the audience. So just keep that in mind that we're actually pretending that we're pitching them an NFT around the Sustainable Development Goals, a really obnoxious thing to do, but we pretend to do that to really make, sending a message that this commercial hype is going to distract us from the real value of the SDGs. Just keep that in mind when you watch the opening keynote. There's the whole team of Exponential Destiny. This is at the UN in Geneva. We had a booth there where we were able to take the Secretary General of the ITU and all the delegates to experience VR and understand the potential and describe the competition to individuals. This is an article that was recently in the BBC. There again is Samantha. You see her. She was featured as well as some of the others from Exponential Destiny. So the work that we're doing, we're very proud of it. It's getting recognized, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. So announced it in February, March. In June, we were in Kigali, Rwanda. There was this beautiful summit that the ITU, the UN agency, by the way, the ITU is the UN agency that deals with trying to look at new technologies and have them scale globally and equitably. So they've been focused on artificial intelligence for good. That was actually something I helped launch when I was the CEO of XPRIZE 4 or 5 years ago with the UN ITU. They're responsible for trying to, if you read the ITU's website, you'll see they're the ones that are working on getting internet to the rest of the world. That's been their mission for decades. So that's the UN agencies, the body that's responsible for this. So the metaverse is under their purview, and that's why we're working with them specifically. They're responsible for defining global standards for that. June to March of 2023, form a team of 2 to 6 people. Again, 14 to 18-year-old category, 19-year-old above, select an SDG. If you need training, Exponential Destiny every 2 weeks does an information session where we provide training on all types of topics, everything from design thinking to social and emotional learning, and we usually have guests when we do this training. We record them all, we put them on our YouTube channel. So for example, for social and emotional learning and how to build empathy in virtual reality, our guest that week was Caitlin Krause, who's a professor at Stanford University, who's written several books on the topic of social and emotional learning in virtual reality, and who's done some tremendous research. So if you go look up that video on our YouTube channel, you'll see that she talks, and we actually show in VR some of her work. And she talks about her design philosophies for using VR for building mindfulness and empathy, et cetera. So, and maybe Sam, if you wouldn't mind, why don't you post access to our YouTube channel, the link to the entire YouTube channel. And if you hit the videos tab in the YouTube channel, you'll see we're up to I think 14, I don't know, what is it, Sam, 13 or 14 videos, roughly 12?
We are gonna reach 12 this week.
Yeah, so every 2 weeks we've been having a session. I mean, you'll find a lot of content. Some of it may be useful, some of it might not be useful at all if you're an expert in VR already. Some of the technical stuff may not be that interesting to you because we just scratched the surface. But we provide, I'll give you another example. One of the information sessions, because we're telling people this is a good way to build a skill set that could make you employable in the emerging economy around metaverse. We assume that some people don't know what that means, or they're skeptical. So we had the CEO of a company from BlendHub, which is based in Spain. We had the CEO where we did an interview with the CEO, and he described why he needs virtual reality, how he's starting to use it. He gives examples of how he's using, he demos some of it. And then he talks about why he needs resources and the types of resources he's trying to hire right now. And he also acknowledges, as I acknowledge, because I'm in the consulting world, former Deloitte partner and Bain, at Bain Consulting, the market is starting to wake up and ask for this. So there is job opportunities, they're starting to emerge, and now is the window of opportunity to be the first in this space rather than learning this, 30 years after. So now's the time to focus on this as a skill set. So anyways, enjoy the YouTube videos if that we posted on our YouTube channel, they might be helpful. And then starting April 1st is the date that we plan on starting the judging. We're going to judge the submissions. I'll give you a little more details on how we're going to judge the submissions, what we're going to start to evaluate the submissions. I'm on the board of the Virtual World Society. That's a nonprofit that's founded by Tom Furness. For those of you that are in the professional space of XR and VR, you probably know Tom Furness. He's considered the grandfather of VR because he's been working at the University of Washington for decades, being one of the first to build VR for commercial use cases. So he's one of the research scientists, engineers that's been in the space from the get-go. And so he has a Virtual World Society as his board. They're a collaboration partner on this whole initiative we're doing. And we're going to leverage those individuals to help us do the judging and evaluation. And then we're going to have a summit, invite everybody digitally as well as virtually, as well as in person, and give out the awards. So as far as the global communication, we actually have surpassed 800 registrants. So right now the registration's up above 800. The UK and the specific countries within the UK, you guys are represented kind of loosely. That's why we reached out to Asha at when we saw her in Lisbon and said it would be great to get the community more involved. Out of the 800 registrants right now, I think there's about 850. About half of them are from countries in Africa, which we're really excited about. They really embraced it. I mean, they're very, very active. Majority of them have zero experience. So this is really a way to get them exposure and get into this field. But as you can see, we've got across 65 countries, and we are hoping that this community from Immerse UK will double down on this, and many of you will not only participate, but hopefully be represented as one of the 17 winners of the competition. We did raise, as I mentioned, $200,000 to date. We are seeking additional funding from some major sponsors. I won't name the organizations, but there is a chance that the sponsor who sponsors a summit also puts additional prize money into this. I'd like it to get to where we raise about $500,000 of prize money, but at a minimum, we have the $200,000 that we've raised thus far. And we'll raise money until we have the summit. So we could find sponsors up until Q3 of next year, which, like I said, we're talking to many sponsors about funding the summit. And these are going to be, for the summit itself, it's probably going to be a major organization that will sponsor the summit. At least that's who we're talking to. But you can see we've raised some of the initial prize money. So we'll allocate that across the 17 SDGs for the 2 age groups. Again, the objective is that people learn a new skill set that makes them employable for the emerging economy around metaverse. We anticipate that within the next 5 years, that every organization, whether you're a government organization, a commercial business, a nonprofit, that people will start to see the value of converting their traditional 2D websites into immersive, social, interactive metaverse spaces, even if it's viewed on a desktop. So we see that transition already starting to happen. So we think the market, today, there is a demand for projects, because we're doing them, with organizations, and that demand is just going to grow. And so this is partly to get people familiar with this space. This is a chart that I borrowed from the XR Bootcamp, but this is some of the statistics in terms of an AR VR engineer. Okay, and then here's a McKinsey report as well, just showing kind of where the market's going. So it's, as we all know, this is a big space. It's important to start to learn this now. This is a screenshot of the YouTube channel that we just mentioned that Sam sent the link to. So you can see it's pretty straightforward. You go there and the information sessions are numbered 1 through 12, and we'll keep adding them. I think Asha and one of her colleagues are doing the next information session, I believe later today or tomorrow. So go check out the YouTube channel and you can have resources there. We won't train you on everything because we don't know everything, but we'll train you on how to be resourceful enough to find additional things. Okay. The other key thing about this is we're making this a competition where you do not need to know a highly technical coding level skill set to participate. We wanted to make sure that anyone can have access to being a metaverse creator and designer, even if they get discouraged by having to get highly technical or get into coding level technicalities. And so as many of you are aware, it used to be very technical, or you have to be a graphic design artist. You have to use Unity or some of these other tools that are more technical. As many of you are aware, there are plenty of platforms out there now that have advanced tremendously in the last few years that essentially have brought the ability to create in virtual reality in the metaverse from a technical coding exercise to nothing more than a 3D PowerPoint skill set. So there's platforms like Engage and Spatial and Horizons. These are platforms that are really akin to PowerPoint, but they're just in 3D. I mean, when I say akin to PowerPoint, meaning you go in and you pick the template you want to be in. You want to be in the middle of an ocean. You want to be in a conference room. You want to be on the planet Mars. You can literally pick those templates, bring them in just like you do in PowerPoint, and then you can start bringing in objects, and you can even animate objects like you do in PowerPoint to build theater type productions. And so you can be completely, left brain creative and excel on this. Samantha's case in point, she's an art major, and she's one of our most skillful resources in being able to design these environments. So you can code away if you want to code and use Unity. We're just saying you don't have to if you want to participate in this, and you have a good chance of winning. I don't think coding is going to be a decipher on whether you can win this competition or not, because you can do just some amazing things in these platforms like Engage and others, especially if you use the record functionality. So the second objective is you then apply what you're learning on one of the 17 goals. Life below water, zero hunger, no poverty. So you take one of these goals that you and your team are passionate about or feel like you have an affinity to, you form a team, 2 to 6 people, 14 to 18-year-olds or 19-year-olds and above. We encourage you to try to pick a good diversity mix of, male, female, people from different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, et cetera, put on your team. And this is not, you do not have to solve the SDG. We'll get into this in a second. We're not saying you have to create an environment where we're judging you on if you're going to solve this sustainable development goal. That would be way more rambunctious of a target, and you probably would need more than a year to come up with that. So it's not about solving the goal. It's about building empathy, awareness, and education. So you'll become part of this community. You'll compete in it. There's obviously no fees to compete because we're a nonprofit. As a matter of fact, in many countries or many geographies where people cannot afford headsets, we're donating headsets. We're actually providing headsets to people that have an economic need. So if you qualify for having an economic need, you can't afford a headset and that's prohibiting you from competing. We actually have headsets that we're donating. Facebook Meta Corporation actually gifted Exponential Destiny, our nonprofit, $200,000 worth of headsets to use in the work that we do within schools. So that's 400 headsets they donated to us. So we're very appreciative of that. Ultimately, the goal is education, awareness, and empathy around the issues and opportunities with the SDG. So think about that for a second. If you take an SDG like number 14, life below water, what you need to think about with your team is how do we create an educational tool in VR that builds awareness around the issues and opportunities associated with this UN goal of life below water, but then create some type of narrative or story or special effects like rain and mist and to build anything you want to use in VR to build an emotional experience and connection that drives action, builds empathy. And you can be creative on how you do that. And your experience can be something that is self-guided. It can be something that you narrate someone through. It can be something that you give someone a tour of. You be creative, you figure it out. We're just going to judge you on how effectively the environment, once we got into your environment, you're able to generate education, awareness, and empathy, which means you'll want to use some educational factors like some of the statistics the UN has about, the issues with that or opportunities with that goal. So some of the data, and life below water, it might be, the amount of marine life that is dying every year and specifically why, or the parts per million of the ocean that now has plastic in it. Whatever data you can find, you bring that in there by researching that on the internet on the UN sites about their goal. Talk about what the UN is doing and what their mission is by 2030 or beyond, for the goal, but then also build some awareness around the effects that this is having on us as we face these issues. So use your imagination and come up with that. And that's how we're going to do the evaluation. Again, you don't have to come up with, you can suggest solutions. There's nothing wrong with suggest solutions, but the judging's not going to be sitting there saying, is this a good solution to that issue, to that goal? We're not doing any of that. We're just doing, did you bring education, awareness, and empathy to it? And ultimately what we'll end up producing is this 17 SDG interlaced, somewhat connected. There's an interoperability issue, but we're doing that by design because the ITU is focused on interoperability. So this is going to show, because we anticipate many of you will use Oculus Quest 2 headsets. Some of you might use other hardware. We're not telling you what hardware you need to use. Some of you might use the Engage platform. Some of you might use Spatial. Some of you might use Unity and create your own. So when we're done with this, there will be this 17 SDGs, but they won't be interconnected. And that's partly why we're doing this, because the UN is responsible for making it, their goal is to make it interoperable and to make it connected. So we're trying to do this to highlight how there are no standards yet. And so the UN will use this as research to think about how do we get it there. So, but it's still going to be a beautiful thing. We'll have, the 17 SDGs throughout this, through all these experiences for the 2 age groups. So that's basically it. I want to get back to the questions. And, you have this information sheet that we sent out to all of you. I think it's on the Zoom link. So let me stop sharing, get out to questions, and see if let's start answering some of the questions people have here. If anyone wants to submit a question, maybe we answered a lot of the questions. Sam posted the videos. Deadlines for teams is end of December. Yeah, we've indicated that to sign up, you should register your team by the end of December. We can make exceptions. I mean, it's not a hard rule. It's just, for us, we need to start to think about how much judging capacity we need. So for example, if we find out there's 50 teams, we know that we need to get, that the number of people we have to help us judge these environments is different versus if we had 500 teams or if we have only 5 teams. So the reason we put kind of a deadline at the end of December for you registering your team is so we can start on our end to make preparations to have people that can judge. I don't think we're going to scrutinize if someone registers, the day after December 31st, but for all intents and purposes, you should try to register by December 31st. So within the next few weeks. By the way, you can register as a team. You're not paying anything. So it's not like you lose something if you register and you don't activate yourself. But yes. Okay. Are projects that are already happening also invited to submit? So that's a great question. We don't want to reward someone that has built something around an SDG for a completely different purpose, and then they're just inserting it into this competition. We want people to create experiences for this competition. So if you have something that's publicly available that you've been using, no, we're not. We actually say on our website, that's one of the things. We want you to be creative and actually compete and create something. So thank you for asking that question. That's a great question. Is the expectations for teams to develop experiences to be entered into the competition or to be put forward as a concept once awarded to actually build it? No, yeah, the expectation is that you will build something and that we'll demo it at the summit. So what you design and create is an actual VR experience that can be experienced via headset or on a desktop. And that it's not a description of what you want to create, it's a creation. Now, you might have seen on our website, if we end up getting like 500 submissions, that puts a real challenge for us to judge 500 in virtual reality. So you'll see on the website that we might ask teams to create a 5-minute video of what they've created, so we can screen the ones and identify the ones that we're actually going to go into in VR, because it's time intensive to go do that. So if we had 500 virtual reality experiences we had to see, it'd be improbable to try to actually see all 500. So on the website, we tell people that we might ask you to submit a video where you give us a little tour in a video. Therefore, we watch a few-minute video and we identify out of the 500, which is the 30 or so that we want to actually go in and look at. So we'll use that as just a filtering mechanism. Let's see what else. Sorry, I missed the beginning. Are you looking for younger people only? I see the age groups 14, 18-year-old and 19-year-old above. We're not taking people below 14 years old. No reason other than the fact that we don't want to be part of the drama, because there's still a little bit of an argument out there whether this is a good environment for a 13-year-old in terms of their cognitive development or just parental permission, et cetera. We didn't want to have to deal with that argument right now. That's not our focus. Our focus is education around the SDGs. So it's 14-year-olds and above. I will mention this because I haven't mentioned it yet. The intellectual property is yours. We would just ask that if you're one of the winning solutions, that your environment is accessible for people to view it from all over the world. At the summit we have with the ITU at the UN, but just in general, that it's accessible for people and you can share it. But we're not taking your intellectual property and creating any product with it or anything like that. Let's see, how much do you expect the value of the prize to be? Well, we've raised right now $200,000. If you do the math and divide that by 17 for the 2 age groups, you see what an equal distribution would be. But we're going to have the discretion of using the funds based on the judging. The judges are going to actually evaluate and figure out the 17 SDGs, and then we're going to allocate the funds according to that. But we have $200,000 that will go towards prize purse money. Today, we have raised that much. as I mentioned at the beginning of this call, we're going to raise money up until Q3 of next year. We are looking at raising, maybe even doubling that prize purse. I mean, that's our goal. We are talking to sponsors that could potentially double that prize purse. But right now we've actually got a confirmation on the 200,000. In terms of over 19 years old, right now, the pie chart of the 800 people that are registered, I think we've got like 30% of the registrants are 14 to 18-year-olds, 70% are 19-year-olds and above, and that 70%, there's like 25% that are 40-year-olds and above, or maybe it's like 15, 20%. I can't remember, Sam, if you remember the stats on that, but the question of can quote unquote older people, I'm probably in this category of older people. Yeah, there's no age limit. There's no age limit on who can compete. Regarding what the metaverse means, does it mean a VR experience and VR environment, including interactivity, narratives, task-related activities? That's a great question. In your environment, when you create an environment, you can use any technique you want to create education, awareness, and empathy. If you go to our YouTube channels and look at what we're putting on the YouTube channels, we definitely don't think the winners are going to be people that just go into VR and bring a video or some photos. That's way too simplistic. What we envision, and we actually give some examples of this on the YouTube channel, you can actually see, Sam, what information sessions was it that we took people through? Information session number 3, I think we took them through some interesting stuff. And then the storytelling one with Zach that we just did. Which ones were those, Sam?
So we have number 3, which is like the introduction to storytelling and that whole design thinking process, which is a little intro to it. But then the information session number 11 is the one where we actually go into depth about how to tell a story and then how to try to prepare it for virtual reality.
Yeah. So Sam, do you want to highlight it? I mean, so the question that someone posted was, what do we mean by getting into metaverse and creating a VR experience? You can define what that means to you, but what we're emphasizing, and you'll see 2 YouTube videos, we did a whole 1-hour session on this. We really tried to bring to life some really extraordinary superpowers that our team has used in VR for our own schools that we work with, and even some commercial clients that we work with, which is used as design thinking and persona mapping and this technique of storytelling. Maybe Sam, do you want to highlight a little bit, just give the brief summary of information? What did you say is information session number 11, the YouTube channel?
Yes, number 11.
Yeah, so why don't you want to describe that a little bit, and then people can go watch the whole thing, but maybe conceptually just describe what that is.
Yeah, to give a summary, we were working with a specific client who had a story already ready. It was a whole play about like an hour to 2 hours long. And so the task was to try to convert that story and get it ready for virtual reality. And so that meant trying to figure out what visuals needed to be made for it, which audios corresponded with the certain visuals, trying to map it out and plan it. So for example, say there was a scene where they're talking about a beach and specifically trying to bring a yacht or something. So if you wanted to talk specifically to what they're saying, you would bring a yacht in, you'd have a whole beach scene. So you'd plan that, you'd have your environment, beach scene. Objects you would need to look for, like 3D models online that you can look for. You could put yacht, you could put extra stuff like the sun, more clouds, anything like that. And so it's really just about trying to map it a little. But one thing we try to emphasize for storytelling specifically is just trying to think a little outside the box. So trying to see either from a specific perspective, like one example Marcus always gives is for like that life below water SDG is trying to think of the perspective of a dolphin where your home is being destroyed by plastic pollution, and just trying to see how you would feel in that situation. So just getting into character, trying to think of different perspectives, and then trying to tell a story for it to be able to bring it to VR. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if that information session, what we found in the broader community were some people like to go in and start getting in the VR and just start putting objects around and start brainstorming. And you can actually brainstorm in VR in real time and start bringing objects in and sketching stuff out with your team. Some people think like that. They want to get in, they want to start using the software and be creative, kind of a bottom-up approach. However, we noticed that some people that are a little bit inhibited to jump into VR and just start creating, or that's just not the way their brain works. We found a lot of success ourselves, as well as other teams, that were writing a story literally outside of VR, right? So just with a pen and pad, pen and paper, or in Microsoft Word, write a novel, write a story that has has a climax and a start, an end, a beginning, a climax, has drama, whatever, write a story like a novelist would write a story, and write a story around one of the SDGs. What Sam was referring to, maybe you're Danny the dolphin. I'm just being hokey a little bit, but maybe it's through the perspective, I'm Danny the dolphin, and I'm going to tell you a story about when I was a younger dolphin in the water. I had very beautiful coral reefs and everything was bright colors and everyone was happy. And now fast forward, the last 30 years, this is the way my world works and, looks, and everything's bleached and the coral's bleached and there's a lot of plastic in the water. And so write a story just saying that. Don't even think about the visuals, just write the story. And if you and your team review that story and you all collaborate on it, and you get to a point where when you hand it to family and friends, they're like, this is an interesting story. It took me 10 minutes to read or 5 minutes to read, whatever, but it's a really interesting story. I kind of like it. It taught me a lot about it. If you can get to that point where just on paper, you've written a story and you got friends and families that read it and stay engaged because you wrote it in a provocative way, an interesting way, an entertaining way, then, bring it into VR, you're just going to take it from good to great. Because now you're just going to add all your superpowers and special effects to bring stuff to life. You can have Danny the dolphin taking you through his world underwater with all the plastic bottles that you brought into the water scene, et cetera. I mean, there's just so much you can do. And then we also share that you can animate things in VR. Most people don't realize this, but in platforms like Engage, there's a full-on recording capability where you can record objects that you manipulate almost like a puppeteer, where you basically puppeteer all these objects to do certain things, like Danny the dolphin swimming around through bottles. You can actually animate that and record that and play that back for an audience when you want to. So it's like creating a theater production. And so if you tell a story, you create a theater around it. We think those are going to be the winning solutions. People that took you on a journey through a story, through this amazing environment that you made all these visuals come to life as that story is being told. And you'll see that whole information session on information session 11. So to answer the question, like, what do we mean about getting in VR? We don't mean get in VR and give me a bunch of statistics from the UN and a bunch of data and show me a bunch of videos and a bunch of photos. You could do that and it might be interesting, it might be effective, but I don't think it's going to be the type of thing that filters to the top of this competition. I think you've got to go and learn some of these other features.
Yeah. And so someone just asked something about if the projects are supposed to hit all of the SDGs or just one in particular. And the answer here is that we're trying to do like an emotional kind of experience per SDG. So it's right. It's
Absolutely.
You only focused on one for your experience, not all of them.
Yes, absolutely. You pick one sustainable development goal. You'll see when you register yourself as a team, which again, you have to register yourself a team soon, like in the next couple of weeks. When you register yourself as a team, you'll see that you list your team members. So only one person has to register as a team, but you list who's on your team. Your team members can change. It's not like you're not locked into place at that point, but that's where you pick your sustainable development goal that you're going to work on as a team.
I have a quick question, Marcus, just
Yes.
to clarify. What if, I know that people can't submit kind of like a previously done project, that's something that's already completed for something else in the past, but what if they just happen to be working on something that is applicable for this competition, but it's not finished yet? Could they still apply with that?
Yeah, that's fine. It's kind of the honor system, like we can't really monitor if you worked on something before unless it was publicly available, or unless, I don't know, unless the school, unless it's just common knowledge that you had something built. We just want people to be creative and not just submit something that, someone that created something and just submit something they created a year ago or 2 years ago for this purpose. We really want people to create things. It makes it a more fair competition as well. But yes, I mean, we have a lot of groups that are already working in classes or universities on sustainable development goal initiatives. And they're just, the professors we have some professors that have actually converted their classes to actually now put those into virtual reality, for example. So yeah, there's a lot of people that are already down this path doing something with the SDGs. Some people that are doing stuff in VR may be loosely connected to an SDG, but now they're going to hone in and do something specific for this competition. So yes. It says a portion is donated to a school. Yeah, one of our goals is if we raise enough money, we'd like to actually give some money to the school of your choice. If you're in school, you can give it to your own school. If you're not in school anymore, you can pick a local school that you want to give a donation to. The donation might be like 30 headsets that we give the winner. We'll give the winner a prize purse, but we might say, hey, we also have 30 headsets to give to a school of your choice. And that's what that thing is referenced on the website. So these are great questions.
What about people who aren't in school, for the older demographic, for example?
Yeah, they'll just pick a school that they, maybe they have a neighborhood school that they want to support. And so they'll be able to award that to some school. It doesn't even have, technically it can be a school or it can be an after school program. It can just be some educational environment that they want to give whatever we award them to that environment, to that organization. It could be an educational nonprofit even, it's just, our goal was just to give something out to something other than the individual themselves, give something out to their community. Can we showcase this to the other people and support them? For instance, if we would like to work with a client school, yeah, I mean, one of the things that would be great for all of you, because I know in this community, you have some of you are really more advanced because you're actually in an Immersive UK environment, this organization. I'm assuming some of you are pretty advanced. It would be great if some of you actually help mentor a school. I mean, if we have a lot of people in our community that are very skillful, and what they decided to do was they're going to go adopt a high school and go help that high school or university classroom. And they're literally going to a school and saying, hey guys, there's this competition. I know a lot about VR. Why don't I help you guys compete on this and learn the skill set? We'll have fun together. And so you'll basically be like their chaperone or their mentor. And then if you do that, you'll share that story with us and we'll recognize you on stage if if your team does well in the competition. We'll highlight the fact that you went out and mentored a school or could be a foster care home. It could be a Boys and Girls Club, any group that you think you want to help learn this. Could be a university classroom. So yes, it'd be great if you all want, you'll be doing what we're doing, which is going out to these environments to help people get awareness to this. So yeah, it'd be great if you want to, as a matter of fact, reach out to us on the side if you want to be a mentor, because we'll do private sessions with you and your whatever group you bring in. We've even worked with some groups where we even have, if there's enough teams competing, we can even take some of the prize money from other sources and actually give a small prize, like a $3,000 prize to that school, for the best it's a competition within a competition almost. So there's some interesting things we can do. Is there going to be a recording this session? Yeah, we'll send out this recording. We'll give it to Asha so she can send it out to the community. That's a great question. Which SDGs are the most popular? Which ones are you seeing less engagement? Reach out to us separately on that. We'll share that with you. As a matter of fact, we should probably post that to the whole community. The good news is I think we have every SDG represented. And it was surprising. It wasn't like 80%, it wasn't the 80-20 rule, like 80% of the community was doing only 20% of the SDGs. It seemed like there was a pretty equal distribution, although some of the more popular ones like quality education, zero hunger, no poverty, some of those I think we're getting a little bit more. But you can reach out to us separately at info@sdgmetaverseprize.org. That's our email address, info@sdgmetaverseprize.org. We can try to answer some of those questions. Yeah, so that's what other ones? Yes, that was what I want to do. I'm personally curious how an active crowded the health and well. Yeah, they're all getting, yeah, I mean, you know what we should do, Sam? Maybe we should publish, maybe we will publish to everybody what the spread looks like, because we also want to make sure that we're at least 2 or 3 teams deep in each SDG. Because we don't want to have an SDG where we award a winner, but there was only 2 teams competing. The goal is to have at least 5 teams competing in each SDG. And we're there definitely with some of them, but I think there's a few of them that still we don't have as many teams. I see the questions have kind of stopped. You guys have been great, really active with a lot of questions. So I think we can start to wrap it up. I don't know, Asha, do you have any final comments for your community? This was, first of all, thank you very much for, when we met you in Lisbon, you were on top of it right away. It sounds like you seem like to have one of the more organized and structured communities that we've come across too. So kudos to that.
Yeah. Thank
That's
you.
great.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it was great to have you. Really appreciate you joining. And as a follow-up, as Marcus mentioned, we'll send out the recording. If anyone wants help, putting a team together, maybe finding other collaborators. I mean, that's really what Immerse UK is here for. If anyone who is a premium member of Immerse UK already, if you sign into your account, you can actually post in the R&D projects board to try and find collaborators. That's always existed to find collaborators to apply for R&D funding but you could do the same for this competition. And if you want to work with a school or community group to help them as a mentor to apply for the competition, then please reach out as well. We'd love to know who you're already planning to work with, or if you would like to find a school to work with, then we can also help you to do that as well.
Yeah, and on the school thing, school thing as well, for lack of a better term, this is probably not the best appropriate term, but I'll use it. We use the Metaverse prize competition when we talk to schools as kind of a gateway drug to the broader school transformation work that Exponential Destiny does. So
and I think that's amazing.
Yeah, if you guys do work it with a school on the Metaverse prize, what we anticipate will happen is the school will get excited, they'll get headsets, people will get into it. And then even before the competition ends, we can actually talk to them more broadly. We can partner with you to talk to them more broadly about how do we do this 5 to 6 month engagement that we've done now 5 times, where we literally go in and think we've mapped out educational pedagogies for learning and education in VR in a low-income public school. And we feel like we've made enough trial and error after doing this 5 times. We did in Chicago, twice in South Central Los Angeles, Florida, and now we're really talking to schools all over the world right now. We do feel like from a research perspective, we have identified a really effective way for that demographic and that type of community in an under-resourced school to start to use a $400 headset with software that's basically free to reimagine how they teach certain subjects that they're struggling at teaching right now. Not all subjects, but the ones that they're struggling at teaching. We think there's some breakthrough ways to do that in VR. And we feel like that's what our nonprofit does. So if you're interested in working with us on that, this would be the way to do it. So.
That's great. Thank you so much, Marcus. It's a great point to end on, and something that we're also really interested in. So we'll probably follow up with you about that separately for something after this whole competition. But if anyone has any other questions for us, just please feel free to reach out. I put my email in the chat there. I think Marcus has as well. Yeah, it's great. Thanks,
Marcus.
Everybody.
Appreciate it, everybody. Thank you.
Have a great day, guys.
Bye.